Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session on marine litter, celebrated, as you already know, in the framework of the WeDiscover Days initiative. Today, we will talk about a huge problem we have as humanity, which is seas and oceans full of plastic and the enormous impact it has on animals and also on us humans. To do so, we will meet four amazing women whose works are related to the sea pollution, each of them from a different perspective and background. From the science point of view, trying to understand better the causes of this marine litter and also the full impact it has on planet, but also from the point of view of cinema as a way to raise awareness in the population and overall to foster engagement. What's really interesting about all of them is that they show any problem can be tackled in a myriad of ways, which are complementary, focusing on the local to tackle the global, and also working with other colleagues from different backgrounds. So how is it going to work this session? First of all, I will make a short introduction just to the subject, so you have a little context on marine litter. Then I will introduce you these four amazing women taking part today in the session, and they will briefly explain the field they are working in right now. After that, we will be beginning the debate, and I will be making some questions. And if any of you who are following this debate online would like to make questions too, the only thing you have to do is tweet them with the hashtag WeDiscover, and I will read them and make them to our participants today. So seeing me for 5 more minutes might be really boring. I have prepared a short presentation to provide you with some context and make it less tiresome. Let's see if it works. Okay, I hope it works. Okay, plastic everywhere. This is Joanna. This is my amazing and beautiful 3-year-old daughter, a cutie, as you can see. For her birthday, for her recent birthday, she received lots of presents. Most of them were in plastic, like the bus and the ambulance you can see in the picture, or the small ball wrapped in paper, also a puzzle with plastic cubes. Moreover, all our apartment was full of balloons. And as all kids, she also loves glitter, so she got a bottle full of colorful and sparkling glitter. The problem is that although we will recycle and try to do our best, it will for sure not be enough. And unfortunately, it is more than likely that part of her new toys will end up here in the sea. Overall, glitter. Glitter is notorious for getting everywhere. Touch one sparkly birthday card and you'll be finding flecks of the stuff in your food, hair, and carpet for months. And believe me, this is for sure. Glitter is usually made from a combination of aluminum and plastic, and it's a type of microplastic. However, unlike other microplastics, which are the tiny particles into which larger plastic items like bottles disintegrate over time, glitter is sold in its more environmentally hazardous format from the get-go, just for fun. We've known for years that microplastics are problematic, but new studies keep emphasizing just how much of an impact they are having on our environment. Since the 1950s, the amount of plastics in the marine environment has increased dramatically. The majority of plastics products that we use have not been disposed of in a proper way. Unfortunately, a considerable amount of this waste ends up in our water streams. Previous studies, several studies in fact, have shown that plastics are the most prominent type of waste found floating in our rivers, seas, and oceans. An estimate shows that 12.2 million tons of plastic enter the marine environment every year. We still don't know all the effects caused by plastic debris in the marine environment. However, every year, millions of species die due to the ingestion of plastic litter, and many of them have become endangered. With plastic entering the food chain of marine life, chances it ends up in our food chain are inevitable. The Mediterranean Sea is particularly vulnerable to plastic pollution and has a lot of plastic debris, up to 55% of all floating ocean particles. Imagine. This is largely due to its semi-enclosed nature, high coastal population density, intense touristic and maritime activities, and general marine circulation patterns. The Mediterranean Sea is also a unique ecosystem. Despite its small size, less than 1% of the total ocean area, it hosts a large amount of biodiversity, up to 80% of all marine species. and these species are coming increasingly under threat due to the marine litter pollution. So our oceans are littered with plastics. Indeed, we are regularly exposed to images and stories of whales and sea turtles choking to death on plastic trash. Ocean plastic is clearly a problem, but what is the solution? Today, we will try to get on with it and talk about where all this plastic comes from, its impacts, and what we can do as citizens with our 4 participants today. Let's see if I come back to you. Okay. Can you see me again? Yes? Okay. So, first of all, before we start our debate, we will watch a documentary by Monica Cambra. 3 years ago, Monica, who studied filmmaking at University Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona, went to take some pictures in a fishing boat in Cambrils, a town in the south of Catalonia. She thought she would be featuring nets and fish and weather-beaten hens. Instead, what she found was plastic, a huge amount of plastic fishermen took out from the sea. She felt really impressed, and that inspired her to shoot the documentary Hidden Ties, Mareas, Ocultas, the winner of this year's Docs Barcelona Film Festival. Let's watch it first as an introduction to the session today. Okay, I had the audio off. I was saying that Monica, when talking to me before preparing this debate, confessed that the thing that makes her most proud of is this documentary has been a change maker among the fishermen in the south coast of Catalonia. More fishing boats have started to help cleaning the sea from plastics. So let's go to the debate. Let me introduce our participants today. Firstly, we have Vanessa Salvo. She's the scientific director of Posidonia Green Project, with experience at national and international level in public environmental management agencies, universities, and NGOs in the framework of marine environmental protection, coastal management, and inland waters. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you to having us.
We also have Susana Sainz-Trápaga, who has a PhD in oceanography from the University of Tokyo. She worked 10 years for the Mediterranean program of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, coordinating fisheries and blue economy related projects. In 2016, she joined the Directorate General for Fisheries and Maritime Affairs of the government of Catalonia, where she's currently responsible of the 2030 Maritime Strategy of Catalonia for sustainable development of the blue economy. Hello, Susana. We can't hear you.
Hello, Cristina. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, welcome. And finally, we have Eve Galimany. She's a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute of Marine Sciences here in Barcelona. Her research background is in the physiology, pathology, and ecology of the benthic invertebrates, with a particular focus on the ecological role that filter feeders like bivalves play in the ecosystem. Also, she has researched and reported on types and amount of marine litter obtained by commercial fleets targeting benthic invertebrates. Hello, Eve. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having us here.
Okay, so first of all, we will hear Vanessa. Each of them will do like a brief presentation, and then we will start the debate. Okay, Vanessa, whenever you want.
Thank you for having me and to share this very nice virtual round table with this huge women. So what I would like to explain you, it's more my personal experience with marine litter. I started to work in marine litter in the NGO some years ago. I don't want to say how much, but a lot. And at the beginning, the marine litter, I remember, was just some beach cleanup to environmental awareness. So I remember that we did some action just to explain to people and citizens how to approach this problem, how we can try to change this problem as consumer. Step by step, there was also, I think, parallel with the step of the research. I think that Eva will explain me better after me, and also with the policies. Also, Susana will say something more. I remember that there was some like a shift, because the beach cleanup, we start to speaking about science for citizens. So to give to scientists and also for policy maker and decision maker data. So we involve the people, not just to look at the problem and so try to change our behavior inside our home, but also apply scientific protocol to give the data and try to understand better the problem. Indeed, I remember first that there was one of the first global program was Marine Litter Watch. It's the program of the European Agency of the Environment that give us to several organizations all the protocol of all the list of the product that we can find on the beach with a number, and we have to quantify all together with volunteers. And all this data are open data. It's a huge database available for researchers, but also for policymakers. Indeed, from this, after the years, I think that the third step was when we start to work together with the policy makers, because I think that from the data of the Science for Citizens, we start to speak as NGO with research and the public institution in what we can do, what we can change. And for instance, in July 2019, we get, for instance, the directive about the ban of the single-use product, in which there is a list of 10 single-use items that we have to ban in 2021. Maybe the pandemic situation, we will shift the deadline, but in any case, and these 10 items that we decide all together at global level to ban from our life, from the production, has been decided from the data of Science for Citizens. So from the data that all the scientists, but also all the citizens provide to the policymaker. So there was, from the awareness, we start to do research together with the university, we start to work together with the policymaker. And I think that nowadays we are like at the first step, the fourth one, that is more try to look in about solution. Indeed, now is starting a new dialogue that maybe we need someone else in our roundtable the next time, that will be the industry. We try to speak with the industry to understand how to change these things. Because we have to think that just in Europe, each year we produce 58 million tons of plastic yearly. And we have to manage 25 million tons of waste. So the best thing that we can do is try to change from the production, because now we saw the shift during the year was shift from consumer awareness to the production. I think that this is more my experience how I was working in marine litter, and also now indeed there are a lot of roundtable in which we are all together, policymakers, citizens, civil society, and research, and also the industry, speaking about how we can change these things, because we understand that it's one of the huge challenges that we have. The quantity of plastic that we have around the world now, it's huge. Indeed, the last scientific publication, for instance, speaking about the Mediterranean area, highlight that the concentration of microplastic in the water, it's quite similar to the concentration of the plastic that we know in the gyre. So in the plastic island, the famous plastic island. So the med, it's quite a new plastic island that we have. So we have a lot of work to do. And I think that we found out the right pathway, because the pathway is the collaboration between all the stakeholders. That is the things that now is how we are going to work.
Thank you very much. And now it's the turn of Susana. Susana, wherever you want.
Thank you, Cristina. I'll share my screen. Okay. Thank you, Cristina, for your introduction. It's a pleasure to share with you all this panel. And of course, the video, in the introduction, it was a perfect introduction from what I'm going to talk about. The issue of plastics is a big concern for us in the administration. And well, today I'm invited to present this project, Pescaneta. It's a project in the context, of protection of biodiversity and recovery of marine ecosystems, and it's an initiative of fishermen. So the initiative the motivation of the initiative, I would say, is to carry out an action plan to give visibility to the impact of marine litter in their fishing activity every day, and to share with the society their daily efforts in cleaning the sea through the collection of plastics. It's exactly what you have presented and, well, what we have seen in the video. Sometimes the fishing activity is very, very far from us. We eat fish, but we are not aware what's really going on in their daily lives and in their fishing activities. And they are having really, well, difficult times now, under any point of view. I mean, under the economic point of view, but also, I mean, they are fully aware of the situation of the in terms of ecosystem damage, of biodiversity damage, and they are well concerned and willing to change the situation, to improve the situation. So the project is developing the framework of the Marine Strategy of Catalonia. The strategy is a very comprehensive, it's a government strategy. And although the strategy for the sustainable development of the blue economy, well, for us, in the end, the final goal of any task we do is the improvement of citizens' quality of life. So, of course, there is an economic component, which can be translated in employment, salaries, and everything which is needed. But also there are other elements which are crucial, like education or health. And when we talk about health, we are talking about nature, we are talking about biodiversity, and all those issues are included within the scope of the strategy. And another issue very important, and it was also raised in a way by Vanessa, is the governance. So for us, it's very important to tackle the governance issue because this is a global problem and that concerns us all as a society. So this is something that is a key element of the strategy. And a pillar of the strategy also is science. So this project, in a way, affects a little bit of, it's very transversal, no? Because it affects an economic sector, which is fisheries, but also biodiversity. It's very related also to rising awareness, education. So it's a very good project that shows, in a way, it's a good example of the implementation of the strategy. It is coordinated by the National Federation of Fisheries Association in Catalonia. So one of the ideas was to integrate the whole fishing sector in a project. We have 32 fisheries associations at port level. Then they are associated at province level, so 3 federations, and 1 national federation for the whole fishing sector in Catalonia. So although, as we saw in the video, they can be individually, the fisherman can behave in a way or in another, dealing every day with the problem. The idea was to integrate and to add forces, I mean, to work all of them together in the same direction in a coordinated way. So it would be much more efficient to do in a coordinated way than everyone solving their own problem. Another issue which is very important is that in this project, marine litter collection is always linked to the usual fishing activity. It's not that fishermen are being paid for collecting plastic, which is this is a very important issue. No, they are just bringing to shore what they are fishing every day, like it or not. So this is something important. And another important issue is that the project finances the expenses that is related directly to the marine litter collection, but is mostly invest in communication activities, information, training, awareness projects in schools, or in general, to raise awareness of what's going on and how we should act in relation to this problem. So this is important. So the money is not going for the fisherman. This is something that is very important. It's not fishermen being paid to collect plastics. This is what I would like to raise. And the scope of action of the project basically is, well, first of all, they wanted to create a brand to give visibility of what they do. The people that, I mean, fishermen, and we all, well, I think we most of us eat fish, and sometimes we are not aware. We are very far from what's going on in the sea. So what that I like very much is to connect. So the idea is for the fisherman to connect with consumers, with fishmongers, and with society in general. It's a need, you know, I think for all of us as a society. Then to elaborate an action plan, a plan to spread this brand. There is many ways to do it. They are doing campaigns, workshops, they are doing educational projects at school, and also merchandising products, no, and to distribute. I mean, they are very putting a lot of energy in this part of the action plan, and it needs to be very well received. A third point, which is very important, is to develop an application for the fishermen to register the amount of waste they are removing, and to take pictures. And something which is very important also is to have all this information with coordinates, geographical coordinates. So to be able to make a mapping then on where is the marine litter and the amount of this marine litter. And as Vanessa explained, I mean, this information is very important. I mean, it's very important, the engagement of fishermen in providing this information, the linkage between, in this case, the fishermen and science. And another point of this project is to design a web platform to share the results. And the web is the idea is that it's very dynamic, and to share data and all kind of information in real time. So, and to disseminate all the activities of the project. So basically, this is the project. It would be a next call of proposal for this project very soon, and we hope to have more projects of this type. But the idea is, is that to realize that if we have fishermen every day collecting this amount of plastic in a way or another, this should be finished in the hopefully not that far future. It's difficult to say because I'm sure the concentration of plastic is very related to circulation of the oceans, or currents, tides, etc. But if we are able to reduce the input of waste, and there is an effective collection methods at sea, we should be able at least to clean the sea, and at least the visible parts. We will see then that is not all the plastic is visible, but at least the damaging the visible part, which is damaging ecosystems and ecosystem services, and it's impacting very badly in the economic sectors, and in general in all of us, is the goal of the project. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susana. I was just being told that you haven't seen my presentation, so I was thinking that you have been watching my images, and okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for the inconvenience. I thought you were seeing my presentation. I guess I didn't remember to share the screen. Okay, no worries. So please, Eve, go on.
Thank you very much. You did a great job, Cristina, so we could kind of visualize it because you were explaining so good.
I'm going to show you the picture of my daughter, so you see it's really beautiful. Okay.
So thank you for having all of us here. I think we represent from very different points of view what we want to talk about today. And so if you understood Cristina at the beginning and she said that I am a bivalve expert, probably some of you are like, what is she doing over here? And so I wanted to explain a little bit my background. And so I am indeed a bivalve expert. And that means that mostly I study bivalves, which are like oysters, clams, mussels, all those little organisms that have like two valves and filter water and help us clean it up. But because of my expertise studying these little invertebrates, I got in a project to study a snail from the Catalan coast. And this snail lives in very shallow fishing grounds with a fleet that is mostly devoted just to target these species. And so the goal of the project was to understand how the snail population was and how the fishery was doing, if it was effective, if it was catching other stuff that was not the snail. And so we could regulate much better what was going on. And so to our surprise, we started collecting marine litter. And so we collected so much after 1 year that it was kind of our priority to understand what was going on because it was shocking. It was not what we were expecting. And so it was very interesting to analyze the data from our two very different sites. One was very close to a city, that's Barcelona, that's populated. And another one was like 200 kilometers south, which is considered like a rural area, which is the Ebro Delta. And so you can clearly see that next to a populated area, the amount of marine litter is much, much larger than what you can find in rural areas. And so that number, and that I think was what made our study so important, is that we could quantify in relation to the whole catch of the fishermen, how much was marine litter. And the closer you get to Barcelona or to a big city, the biggest it gets, up to the point that it could be about 40% of the total catch can be marine litter. And that's a giant number. That's huge. And so because then I started to get myself, I was just amazed by what's under the water and we're not seeing. And so I thought it was also very important not to just keep it for science, but to also speak out and tell to everyone. And so I have my little freaky collection of things that we've been finding in the net. So, you know, I have my little dolly here and it beeped once upon a time. So it still had the beep inside. So it's not just plastic, we can still find metal. We have like ropes, a lot of ropes. We have, and this, I love it, a little Playmobil ghost. And so these don't come from fishermen because it's sad to hear that, you know, fishermen are now finding what they once upon a time threw in the water. And that's not true. We are all to blame in the situation we have now, but they are the ones collecting the trash that most of us threw inland. And this is something very important that society needs to understand. And so why is science important in this marine litter world? We are important because we need to, as my previous colleague said, we need to standardize methods so we can compare locations. We need to talk to fishermen, we need to talk to society, and we need to understand the problem from like everywhere. And then with those reliable numbers that science can give to everyone, what can we do? We can locate more polluted areas than others. What are the worst or the best fishing grounds? Maybe also understand where the pollution comes from according to which type of pollution we're finding in each location. And all the data can help improve management and not just like environmental or fishermen, you know, the fisheries management, but also the land management, like wastewater treatment plants, and like even clean up the forest that we have extremely dirty. And you can find nowadays, sadly, everything coming from rain event. So I think the team you have over here today, I hope we can provide as many answers to questions you can have. We have 3 different expertise, but I think we are all needed to be joined here to tackle this problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Eve. Super interesting, the 3 of your presentations. So first of all, what I started, by the way, I started making some questions, but all of you who are watching this debate online, please, if you have any questions from now on, you can tweet them with the hashtag WeDiscover, and I will make them to our participants, okay? So first of all, any of you who want to answer, what does plastic do to our environment? And I would like you to differentiate between macroplastic, I mean, a bottle of water or whatever, and microplastic. I was trying to show you before the images of glittering water, but so what are their impact if they are different?
At different level, maybe I think that Eve can explain better after, but we can say that the waste reach the sea as macroplastic, and the plastic as environmentalist, I would like to say we have to avoid to use the words degradation with plastic, because it's just fermentation. The macroplastic starts to ferment, so it becomes every time smaller, and also you can achieve a dimension that naked eye cannot see it, but it's a process. So from the macro you can reach the micro. Or other kind of plastic that could reach the sea, and not just the sea, because nowadays we know that we have micro plastic also in the air, in the snow, quite everywhere, come from fibers. So when we make laundry or just we use some tissue or something, you can produce this fiber that going on around the air, and after that achieve the sea. So the impact are different. Maybe the impact of the fibers, all this kind of thing, I know that Eve can explain better, but it's like a pathway, we can see, from the micro to the micro.
Okay, I don't know whether Eve wants to add something or.
Yeah.
We don't hear you, Eve.
Now? There we go. From my study, and probably what Susana is finding, is that the fishermen are collecting macro plastics and macro marine litter, which means it's big. And it's bigger, like it's at least a few centimeters to like any giant number that you can imagine, like for example, meters of something. Each type of litter and each size of litter have different consequences. We have seen all those pictures like, I don't know, entangling a lot of animals and so they die. Other pictures of animals eating all that litter and so most of them also die. For tiny things, it's important that it's not only the fact that we are all, even us, eating tiny plastic, but they're also able to like absorb and retain toxics. So we're eating the tiny plastics with toxins that are in the environment. And there's also, it's not just the ecological costs of marine litter, but it's also the economic cost of marine litter. And that includes, for example, like beach cleanup. There are a lot of volunteers, but we need so much more. And then treating all that garbage is money. The tourism that's not coming is money. The damage, for example, that all the litter can make in the fishermen nets, like breaking nets, the time they spend selecting the litter from what would be catch that they would be really selling. I've seen fishermen with issues like big, for example, boxes like wood boxes that they get into, I don't know, propellers or plastics getting into pipes, and then the system clogs and then they have a mechanical problem. So it really, there are different types of issues according to macro or micro litter, but they're both economical and economical cost to all of us.
But in the first place, how does all this litter get to the sea? I mean, because I don't imagine all the people like throwing things into the sea. So we throw them into garbage bins. So what's going on? How do they end in the sea? How can we see this big island of plastic moving around the sea?
As ecologist and activist, I can say we produce quite 8.3 billion of tons from the 1950, and we recycle just the 9%, because we are unable to recycling. Indeed, when I explained my history as in the NGO and the relation with Moderator, at the beginning, when I told it was the environmental awareness, but also a lot of information about recycling of this kind of thing. Nowadays, we know that it's not quite possible. Indeed, we have to reduce the production, and also the problem is the type of material that we use. Sometimes some kind of material are not recyclable, so it's a quite difficult situation. And more or less, it's just an estimation that is not really, it's not perfect, but we say that the 80% of the waste come from land. So as Eve explained before, the difference between the rural area or the urban ones, of course, it's the consumption that we do. Indeed, for instance, all the work that we are doing together, NGO, research, and policy maker, to define the reduction of plastic and also the reduction of packaging. For instance, we have a lot of the packaging of the packaging. So a lot of unusable plastic that we can avoid. So, and also the kind of plastic, it's also the plastic that we cannot recycle. For instance, all the packaging that of the cookies, you cannot recycle it, that one. You can recycle a bottle, you can recycle a very deep type of plastic, but not that one. So for that, it's important the study of scientists and also the action of the activists, and after that, the reaction of the policy.
Okay, wow. Okay, so what can we do? Because we always like say there is a lot of marine litter. It's a big problem for animals. It's a big problem for environment, also for us, for our health. As you two were saying, Eve and Susana, we are eating these microplastics, and they are like hormone disruptors. So we know they are really harmful. What can we do? What can we do from society? What can we do if we are an NGO? What can we do if we are a politician?
Well, something that is very clear, that is it's a global issue, and which is very important here is the governance part. We are now, for instance, in a project of governance of big challenges, and we are working on the case of a pilot case on plastics, because it's huge, the chain of actors involved in this loop, no? So we can recycle, well, as Vanessa said, one part of it, but once you collect all this kind of plastic, I mean, there is a whole process of cleaning, reduce it to a particular pelletry to be able to use it in a to give a second life of this plastic, then another use that can be clothes or can be glasses or can be whatever. But if it is clothes, you have the risk also to come back to the ocean as microplastic. So it's always a question, are we transforming a visible problem into an invisible one, which is really a concern. Well, but on the other hand, you have filters for the laundry machine to avoid these microplastics to arrive the ocean. I mean, I think is that to have all the actors coordinated in a kind of in a governance, in a way of governance to addressing the whole problem is crucial. Because here sometimes we have, for instance, if you go to a shop and to buy I don't know, the clothes, probably the clothes is the company that makes these clothes is from here probably, but they are importing the pellets or all the material of this plastic waste, sometimes from abroad. So it's also, I mean, it's not effective. And sometimes the pellet is made also abroad. So you export the plastic and then you import the material to build your thing. So there is a lot of irrational activities because at the moment it's very split. It's very, you know, it's like isolated people, different industries, different activities, and they are not all of them connected. So I think there is a huge governance issue, and the way of addressing this problem, what this is something that we are working on. I think it's a very important. It is not a matter of garbage matter today. It's a global issue, and of course, society has a role in choosing, for instance, not to buy plastic bottles. But on the other hand, sometimes if you see, no, I had in my mind a plastic bottle when. A bioplastic, I said, oh, great. And when you see it, is the material comes from very far from Barcelona, you know, it's not a material. So all these kind of things, it is important also to have alternatives. And for that, science is crucial. We have a lot of sub-products of agriculture and from fisheries and from aquaculture that we can use in make bioplastics. So is this a solution? So researchers are key on that. And how do we connect all these pieces of the puzzle? No, I think it's very important. And this is why, well, we are focusing on these governance systems involving all stakeholders in trying to find solutions. It's tough, it's not easy, but I think it's the only way because it is really a governance issue, a global issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
what can
so
do science?
I agree with Susana. I wanted to point it out that marine litter has no borders. Like once they're in the sea, they're there. It doesn't matter whose water that, you know, the country belongs to, it's there. And I mean, I've been on board with a lot of different fishermen and we've collected packaging that was clearly not from here. And because plastic live for maybe a century, you know, it has such a giant long life, it can come from anywhere. And so we all need to be together. And it's not because I'm controlling marine litter or maybe plastics here, it's gonna be enough. If we don't control it from everywhere, we're not gonna do anything at all because it just goes around.
Fully agree.
Right? And so it's important that we all have this global vision of joining forces, but as Susana said, not just like different industries with policies, with everything. We need to, at this international level, that I think it's extremely complicated, but it's the only way that we can do something about it, because we have so much litter and we don't see it because it's, it's underwater and we don't see it. But I mean, I've seen videos that are colleagues of mine studying shrimps at 1,000 meters depth, and they still find like Coke cans and soda cans and plant pots, for example. It's like, what's a plant pot doing at 1,000 meters depth, And so we all need to see it as a global issue, and we're really eating it. I mean, there was a study saying that I think it was each one of us ingests the amount of what it would be a plastic credit card every week. So each one of us is eating a credit card every week, and we can't, right? I mean, our bodies are not made to digest plastic, and so it's gonna bring a lot of health issues also. So we all need to be very aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. It's a global issue, as you are mentioning, but can we all tackle with this problem together? I mean, here, for example, in Barcelona and in Europe, in the States, we have alternatives. You can buy, for example, not a plastic toothbrush, you can buy a bamboo or something like that. We have alternatives. We have bioplastics, as we were talking about right now. But what about the developing countries? Do they have these alternatives? Because it means also more money. These alternatives are much more expensive. So when we are talking about a global effort, it means we are going to be able to pay, but what about half of the planet? Are they going to be able to pay for that? Or who is going to pay for this?
But in any case, one of the huge problems of the developing country, it was not just because they use a lot of plastic produced there, mm-hmm. or they import plastic produced in Europe or US, but also because we were unable to manage our waste. So we send our waste then. So the huge problem was not just because there was a consumption in developing country of this huge amount of plastic. The problem of developing country was a convention that now China started to block this import plastic waste from the US and Europe, and also the other country now start to ban this kind of trade that was going on. So the very huge problem in developing countries, it was not just the use of plastic in their country, but was because they are not able to manage, because they haven't the infrastructure to the waste management, so to go in and to manage or handle all this quantity of waste coming from US and Europe. So nowadays we are going also to tackle this problem, because it's true what Susana and you told before, that it's a global problem, and at global level, United Nations, for instance, now all the region of the United Nations approve a regional action plan in which there are policy also in this kind of things, also the management at local level, the production, the consumer, and how to act at all the level of this kind of thing.
Okay, it's a pity you haven't seen my presentation, because I was showing like pictures of Indonesia with all their beaches like covered in mountains of plastic. It's horrible when you see these images. And can we clean all the mess we've been doing in the oceans? Is it possible?
My opinion, I don't think so. What we need to do is stop putting more litter in the oceans. What's in there already is going to be very difficult to remove. Whatever fishermen are doing is amazing, because they do it like voluntarily. They have totally changed perspective of fishing and fisheries. They are now very educated persons. They ask, they help. I've always find a very collaborative sector. So, I mean, what they're doing is great, but they are not the answer. They are not, you know, the garbage people of the sea. It's not their job, and they're losing money and resources. So I think a lot of it, especially when it goes like all the way deep down the bottom where nobody reaches, it will stay. And as Vanessa said, it's gonna fragment and it's gonna turn into tiny things that we will all end up eating someday. But it's crucial that we stop using plastics, because if we stop it, it will not be made. And so if they're not made, there's no way they're gonna end up in the oceans. And so that's my point of view. I don't know what you think, girls, but.
I don't know if from the perspective of the public administration, are you investing like in cleaning at least our coastal area?
Wow. I mean, there are projects of cleaning the coastal areas, but as Eve said now, I mean, all the energy now we are putting on is stop producing, because this is clear. We are doing a lot of work, for instance, in collection fishing nets that are trapped in the bottom of the ocean, and they are detecting and collecting them. There are different projects, but this is not the point now. The point now is to stop reusing and producing. And we are focusing also on alternatives, working with the industry. And in that part, science is crucial, no? Because, we are working a lot with scientists in order to, I mean, to get involved, to have a vision also in the problems, in the actual problems of society, and to connect the basic science to give solutions, no, to the people. So this is very important, and I mean, I would say there's a kind of innovation and transference of knowledge from the scientific world to the industry, because it's very important that the science doesn't, I mean, gives a benefit to society, no? Gives back a benefit to the society. And we are working a lot with scientists to have this perspective. In fact, we have, we supported the creation of a network, of a maritime network of scientists. Now it has more than 600 scientists from 64 groups of research groups in Catalonia of different maritime disciplines, with the objective of science, of transference and innovation, no? Because it's not enough to have it the basic, for instance, bioplastic or whatever, but you need to give solutions to the industry to find alternatives. We need alternatives. We are so dependent of plastics, and we need alternatives.
In this sense, Susana, are like public administrations, like, I don't know, how to incentivize the industry to change plastic, which is really cheap and it's very useful, to change to other alternatives? I don't know whether you are taxing maybe, or maybe giving them some money to invest in other.
But first we need a solution. So it's true what you say. We can give incentives, we can provide different, but first we need a real alternative. So,
but for example, there are some industries that are finding alternatives, which are really like, for example, I'm thinking about this company of beers that they have stopped. They stopped like using these plastic rings between the cans, and they are using like I think it's cardboard or something like that. So I mean, we can.
Yes.
There are some, but it's
there are
more
incentives
expensive for them. So
for
I
this
don't
kind
know
of
if
initiatives. Usually there are incentives, different kind of incentives. Yes, I mean nowadays, I mean the projects in relation to this to the plastic issue are, well, it's a lot of money being invested, no, in this problem, and there are incentives for this kind of alternatives of changes. But I insist, we don't have the solution yet. We don't have 100% a solution, an alternative for plastic, and we need to work on that.
Okay.
Together with human scientists.
I think, if I may add a little bit, I agree with Susana. We 100% need science to change materials or productions or make things more cost effective. But as consumers, we have a lot of power and we're not using it. And so if consumers decide not to buy a product because of any environmental issue, it contains too much plastic, it contains plastic, whatever, that industry is going to find a way to change the product and the way they're marketing it. And this is something that sometimes we don't think, and we're waiting for administrations to do something, or science to do something, you know, or a bunch of volunteers to go and clean the beach. But that's not how it works. And we all have the power, each one of us, to change things that we don't like. And so one is nothing, but one and another, if we add up, we can force some changes that otherwise might be very difficult to come.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And one of the issues that we didn't tackle today is the wet tissues. No, that it's a huge, I mean, I'm sure you are aware, I mean, mountains of these wet tissues. And we did a lot of work and trying, well, with the supermarkets, and it's very hard. So it's more easy to work it through the schools. I mean, I like it to work it through the schools. I mean, as we saw before, Cristina, well, as she mentions his daughter. Suppose I have a son. He used to, for instance, to go to a house of a friend, and says, "Mom, they have wet tissues in the bathroom." Like, they have, no say, a bomb in the bathroom. We go, "Yes, dear." So, you know, they are fantastic. So I think this, through school, through education, this is the best way to use it. So we need this kind of education, because there is a lot of things that we can do. This is true. This is true. Why don't we use more glass bottles instead of plastics? Why the yogurt are all of plastic, all made of plastic? Why we don't recycle the glass bottles as our grandparents did? So why won't we do it? So there is a lot of things that we can do, I would say, not today, but tomorrow, no? But it probably is not, there are a lot of things that we need to give alternatives.
That's totally true. I was going to mention that, for example, it's very nice when you go to the market now that more and more people are like using, people from all ages, they are more and more using these bags made of textile. They're already using their bags, and they go with their Tupperware to buy cheese or whatever, and they don't use anymore this plastic like wraps that they can't be even recycled. So you have to throw them to the garbage, and well, pray they don't end up in the sea. So what do you think about it?
But before it was necessary to stop, distributing the plastic bags and to sell them. So it was not enough, the conscience of people in not using plastic. I mean, I was living more than 20 years ago in Germany, and the first day I went to the market, to the square. So I was in my bicycle. I bought potatoes, and the guy gave me a newspaper with the potatoes, and I was like this, until the bicycle to put all the potatoes in my bike, and it was completely different. And now, until you don't sell the bag, and until you don't prohibit the bag, people don't react. And this is education.
What do you think, Vanessa, that you work with in this NGO? How should we or can we make people aware of the real problem? Because everybody knows, of course, that plastic is like devil or something, but we all consume plastic, and we forgot our bottle at home and we buy a plastic bottle. And not only the plastic bottle, you were talking about, for example, clothes. We wash our clothes like 1,000 times every week, and maybe it's not necessary. So how can we make people more aware that we have to stop using plastic? And that can be a change maker in this.
Yeah, but I think that nowadays people, it's reached quite a good level of awareness about the problem, because nowadays quite all the people know the problem. So I think that the work that they need to do now is work with the industry to provide these things, because it's true that sometimes it could be hard to find out a solution or something different, because it's true that there is now the zero waste lifestyle, and nowadays, for instance, in Barcelona, there are a lot of shops in which you can buy things without bags, and it's very easy, and also there are a lot of shops that are answered words shops, but now we rediscover this one, like, oh, this is zero waste. No, my grandmother went there, but anyway, in any case.
Well, when we were children, I mean, we're not so old, so when we were children, things were like that.
Indeed. So I think that people know the problem is shift the production, and also understand that, because it's not criminalize the material, because plastic could be useful. It's true. For instance, you can nowadays we are in with the pandemic, so we saw, for instance, in sanitary items, and then for the hospital, for all this kind of work could be useful. The problem is that we use a material that was the scope of this material were durability and all this kind of thing to fix just for single use. So the paradox is things that we cannot use something durable for single use. So avoid everything that it's throw away items. All these kind of things are very dangerous for the people, for the planet, for society also, because plastic, it's oil. So we are using oil that nowadays it's very high from the oil to build up something. So to produce CO2 emission for the production just for 20 minutes in your hand. So a plastic bag, it's just some minutes, something like that. So we have to just to thinking about this relation. So taking care of all the things, and try to avoid all the single-use things. But I think that people quite reach the message. Now we have to speak together with the industry to change all the things that we cannot reuse from the plastic to another material. That cannot be bioplastic, because bioplastic is a very strange name. The plastic cannot be bio, so it's just plastic. So
are you telling us that when we buy these things that they say bioplastic, you can recycle it and completely?
It depends. Nowadays there is this, maybe, I don't know if as a researcher you know better than me, but there are a lot of research in the material for the substitution, but we didn't achieve now really something. We don't achieve something that could be really a substitution of the material, of the plastic. Because bioplastic, if you have a percentage of oil, or so the plastic, of the polymers of the plastic with something biodegradable, you just accelerate the process of the fermentation. So it's just an acceleration of the process. For that, it's not useful. But it's true that in some case, they come from natural elements, but we have also to avoid other things, because we saw something also with biocombustible, or bio-oil, or this kind of things. So the production of CO2, the destruction of forests. So the problem is also, I think that it's a global problem, as I saw before my colleague, in which we have to be very careful when we would like to find out some solution, because each solution, behind each solution could be some problem. So I think that the key of the solution is a multidisciplinary working group, and with a lot of different stakeholders to try to find out really a solution. And the best solution is the reduction, the consumption, because also the problem is that we going on this level of consumption, also the substitution with another kind of material, it could be dangerous for the planet. It's harmful for the planet. So because also we have climate change, and plastic, it's also related with climate change. It's not just the marine litter that we can see, or is the toxins, the chemicals that we have, it's the CO2 produced. There are a lot of things inside just one thing. So we have to be, nowadays, I think that as consumers, in quite all the issue a challenge that we have in this 2020, that it starts to be quite hard, is that we have to be very critical with everything, and try to have a global vision of all the problem, because just one solution, it's quite impossible.
I wanted to add to Vanessa's statement that it's true that people are more aware of what's going on and plastic pollution and everything, but we have created a society that's very demanding, and we're all running the whole day. And so we need to think that it's worth spending a little bit more time shopping or a little bit more time cooking, even if it's for your own health, because you're not eating all those additives that all those plastics are containing. So even if we're just selfish and we don't care about anything else, at least for that reason, I think it is important to see that it's worth doing it, and sacrificing a little bit more time instead of watching a TV show, cooking a tiny bit more, but being more responsible when you consume any kind of product.
Okay, totally true. Before we continue, I want to remind all the people watching us online that you can tweet your questions with the hashtag WeDiscover. We still have some 10 minutes. So if you want to ask something to our participants, please use Twitter and the hashtag. We were talking about being more conscious about the things that we consume. When we talk about climate change, we talk about the 3R: reduce, as you were talking, Vanessa, reuse, and also recycle. But and I'm sorry, but I have to talk about the COVID thing. With all these pandemics going on, it's incredible. The other day, I saw in the middle of a mountain, some face masks. I've seen pictures, when preparing the presentation, you haven't seen. I've seen pictures on the website of a lot of masks in the seaside and inside the sea already. So, and at the beginning of the pandemic, when we thought that the COVID, you could catch it with touching things, there were a lot of gloves everywhere. So what are we doing with this pandemic? It's we have learned nothing.
We need to realize that anything that's on the ground from anywhere can end up in the seas and in the oceans. And this is something that is very difficult to be aware of. And so even if it's in the Pyrenees, inland, far away, anything that's not put away wherever they belong to can end up in the water because of wind, because of streams, of rain events, anything. And even if we put away garbage where it belongs to, even in that case, sometimes it ends up in the sea because there's an issue in the wastewater treatment plant, and then they just have to open. Anything can happen, but it's very important not to throw things through the toilet. The toilet is not the garbage. So please waste where it has to go, which is in a plastic bag, because everyone is using plastic bags, but I mean, in a bag to throw in the dumpster, not through the toilet. And then also it's very important because I've seen a lot of pictures of like birds entangled and animals entangled in like the elastic bands.
Yes.
So if you can like cut the same as you would do with the bottles or the cans.
With the rings.
Yeah, anything like that, if you can cut it, even if it ends up in the sea, at least it's not going to be such a bad entanglement issue.
Okay. What do you think, Susana?
No, I fully agree. I mean, that everything can end in the ocean, well, it's an evidence today. So this is no doubt. I mean, the system, I mean, the land is a closed system, and when anything you produce is somewhere, and it's damaging somewhere or something or someone. This is something that I don't know if we are all aware. No, the planet is closed, so everything we produce will have an impact. Whatever you use will have an impact because it doesn't disappear. So this is something that I think we need to, because the phase in which the ocean was considered the garbage of and people were throwing, I think this is, I would like to say it's over. No, so people now is not that like throwing bottles to the sea like this. But anyway, you have this garbage reaching the ocean. So the only way is not to produce it. It's the only way.
It's a paradox because you study blue economy and we consider the sea a blue economy. I mean, we are finding like new drugs in the sea to make drugs for cancer or other diseases. We are fishing new types of species that can feed a lot of population. Right now that with the climate change, we have a big problem in feeding our growing world. And at the same time, we are polluting more and more the sea. So,
well, but the thing is, I mean, I was working also in conservation for more than 15 years, and sometimes, so nature has a value in itself, no? But at least if you don't see this part of value, at least under an interested point of view, no, your economic activity depends on an ecosystem service, and it depends on the health of the ecosystem. If you don't care of nature by itself because you don't have the sensibility or whatever, but be aware that your economic activity, your economic, your business depends 100%, and every business depends on the ecosystem services, on the health of the ecosystem. So this is something that it's hard, for instance, to convince sometimes some sectors, some economic sectors, but it is true, and they depend on that. For instance, let's say tourism. What would be tourism doing if we don't have a healthy and natural ecosystem? No, so the maritime tourism would collapse. So it should be their first interest to keep it. So and like tourism, any other. Well, I think this what Abe was mentioning before about the fishing sector. I'm working with the fishing sector for more than 20 years, and the relation we have now and the collaboration we have now and the conscience that they have now, it was not before, because I mean, they depend on the sea, they care of the sea. Now they are the first of doing something to improve the situation at sea, no?
Mm-hmm.
So this change, well, are taking place. And I think it is very important. That this is why I really like very much to present the good practices of the fishermen, because they are the first of knowing and for suffering what's going on in the sea. So I think it's also to, I mean, it's important to highlight how are cooperating. And well, like them, I think every fishing sector should have this conscious and change of mind and protecting the ecosystem service from what they live.
Mm-hmm. 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 We are running out of time, but before we conclude this roundtable, I would like you to, I know it's difficult, but I would like you to give me a take-home message for people who are watching us. Like, okay, it's like everything is, I don't want to give like a very negative message. It's really, of course, it's horrible what's going on, and it's a big problem, but I would like to finish with a take-home message that what can I do, or what are the things that we can do to improve the situation. So to end with a positive message. So come on, Vanessa, first, you go. A take-home message for all the people watching us.
Okay, I can say 3 action.
Okay.
So
perfect.
1, surf on the website, because there are a lot of solutions to start to be zero waste. Put your goal just to change one thing okay. Each year. 1 year you can change your bottle, the second year you can change other things, and reach your goal. Each year you shift. The second point, you can support some NGO, collaborate with some ledger, do some voluntaries, so start to learn more about it. And the third, nowadays there is a very huge course that it's a MOOC. It's a free course from United Nations about marine litter. So you can become an expertise in all the level, science, governance, and international level, what you can do, and so learn about it. It's for free, and you can find it in the website.
Thank you very much. Super interesting. Eve, what do you say? Come on, a take-home message.
I would say, because I think that most of the audience are students, I would say that because we messed up so badly, they have a whole wide world to explore, and probably a bunch of very new jobs that they can create and help us. And so in a way, you know, we're opening them a lot of doors to explore and help find a solution.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Susana, what do you say?
Well, I'm not sure what to say, but what I would like to transmit is a positive message. I'm not catastrophist. I mean, there is a lot we can do. There is a lot we can do, and it's important to be aware of that, and also to be aware that our own health depends on the health of the sea. I mean, because everything is connected. We can see it perfectly with the pandemic. No, so this is also related with our role in the planet. No, so as soon as we don't care the nature, the harm is to ourselves. But overall, it's a positive message. There is a lot we can do in consumption habits and basically, and to find solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. So Eve, Susana, Vanessa, thank you very much for your super interesting messages and all the things you have explained. It's been a pleasure to be with you this evening talking about marine litter, which is not a pleasure to talk about, but we have to deal with it. And everybody who are watching this roundtable, thank you very much for being there. I'm afraid you have been really shy and you don't have like make any questions, but well, I hope that you have found it really interesting, this debate, and well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to you.
Thank you.
And thanks to you all.
Bye.
It was really
Yeah.
a pleasure to share this time with you.
The same.
It's interesting, yeah.